Hey, Spider Nation, welcome back to another episode of Spider-Man's Tangled WebShow. I'm Jonathan, webmaster of SpiderManFanRave.com, SpiderManFanRave.com. I think by this point in the podcast, everyone knows what that website is. And if you're a first-time viewer or a first-time listener, just go on over there. I won't tell you anything about it. I'll just let you be pleasantly surprised by what you find. I hope you like what you find. And if you don't like it, well, I guess it's not for everyone. No hard feelings. But yes, go on over, SpiderManFanRave.com. Have a good time. Enjoy yourself. We were off last week for Easter in recognition of the holiday. Not really in recognition of the holiday, just because I had family over and had no time to do this podcast. So, but we'll say it's in recognition of Easter, if that's what the general public decides to call it as. Now, tonight I'm being joined by James. What's going on, James?
Actually, a lot since we've been gone the last 2 weeks. Got a new job because Amazon was getting kind of hard at my school schedule and stuff like that. So I applied for some other places. Got hired by, don't laugh, McDonald's, but I'm a culinary student. I'm in college. It's helped me pay for school, and B, getting experience in the kitchen. Maybe fast food, but it still counts. So awesome. Yeah, I'm a second generation McDonald's employee because that's how my parents met. I wouldn't be here if it wasn't for McDonald's. So yay, McDonald's.
So you could say, James, your parents really were loving it.
Yeah, pretty much. Well, until they, got older and said the fuck it all and got better jobs. And I just realized I just said that online and I might get fired right now for saying that. So if I say that, I just want to apologize. When I say better jobs, I meant like they got older, not working at fast food, their whole lives. That's what I meant. I didn't mean like better. I think it's totally super cool and awesome, and I'm completely saving my own ass right now by saying that. Yeah, so you got that. You got that going on. I had Easter. Easter. What else can I say? It's Easter. We had ham. We normal Easter stuff. And then I saw, probably the most. Let's just say when I'm drinking Dr. Pepper right now, even though the flavor is really good and it's my favorite soda, I am drinking bitter disappointment.
Ooh.
Because literally, I just watched a whole movie that should have been Titanic hitting the iceberg in epicness, and instead I got an ice meh.
What have I been up to the past couple of weeks? Well, I had family over for Easter. That was nice. I've been going to school. Went out shopping today. I found this T-shirt. I'm not arguing. I'm just explaining why I'm right. Yes, and I had to buy it because I thought it would be something entertaining to wear on a podcast where we're basically talking about stuff. I thought it would be a fun, ironic twist.
And it's also your tribute to Dan Slott.
I will not confirm or deny that. What else happened this week? I started registering for fall classes because registration opens. Yeah, that's pretty much the cusp of everything. I watched Daredevil. I watched Batman versus Superman, and I watched the internet react to Batman versus Superman.
Let's just say this: if you want me and John's opinion, because trust me, me and John literally talked about a half hour before we went on the air.
It was more than a half hour.
Like about an hour about Batman versus Superman. If you want our opinions, go to any review of Batman versus Superman and just insert our names there. Because literally we have almost the exact same opinion as everybody else on the internet in the movie.
Let me tell you what, we will just save during the shout out section. I'm probably gonna hit Daredevil up a little bit, give like a mini review. And James promised me, he's like, yeah, when we do the shout outs, I'm gonna talk about BVS. So
oh god. Get ready for a since past, size of rant. Mostly directed at Jonathan Kent. You fucking asshole in that movie. Like literally, I'm just gonna go beat by beat. Jonathan Kent. I'm just so depressed because he was so perfect in Smallville, and they screwed him up in the movies.
All right, but just so you guys know, this is not a Batman versus
DC Rebirth sounds cool. In comic news that came out recently, DC Rebirth. I'm definitely picking up a lot of those books. They all sound awesome, especially the bat titles.
But don't worry, listeners and loyal viewers. Most of you who have actually shown up quite early for this episode, we've had quite a few people coming in like just early, which is actually kind of surprising. Usually it takes a bit
They
longer.
missed us.
They did miss us. It feels good to be loved.
Yeah. And for that one person who commented, Jan is not dead. He's not buried somewhere. Jan is off doing normal teenage high school stuff that totally us older me and John can't relate to until, our own mind wipe crap happens in our life. But we can't relate to that teenage drama anymore. But he has his own teenage stuff going on. Like, he is in a robotics school, I believe. And, it's really busy right now with him being a senior, getting ready for college. And, you got extracurricular stuff. We get that. That's what's going on with Jan. He still talks to us. He's still a part of the Tangled WebShow, Spider fan, whatever the fuck we call ourselves now, podcast fan club. He's still part of this family. Jan's not going nowhere. He's going to be back one of these days, probably of course of the summer when he has nothing to do.
Oh, so we're just a second choice for Jan. Oh, that's awful. No, I kid. Yeah, Jan unfortunately has to do this like horrible thing called live his life. So yeah, he's off being one of those pesky kids.
I think the best way to sum it up is like by each one of us where we are currently in our lives. Jan with a lot of stuff when I talk to him on Facebook. He's like, I wish I could do the podcast. I'm just busy with other things and I got a job and all that stuff. And Jan, when you hear that, it's like he's a 15-year-old Peter Parker from the Ditko era. I hear something goes on with John with college, and it's like there's the Romita era. Then you got me with my school that sometimes like feels like a lot like Romita era Spider-Man. Plus, I'm the 25-year-old post-college, Spider-Man. So a lot of our lives is like he's the everyman because like literally between Jan, John, and me, the three of us can relate to a lot of things that are currently going on in our lives with the character.
Yeah, it's. You never really, until you think about it sometimes, you never realize how applicable Spider-Man's adventures are to your own life until you like really think about it. But that's a perfect.
It depends on the story because I honestly doubt any of us has ever and probably will ever make a deal with a devil. I don't think any of us is going to become rich billionaire, with a Parker Industry like company jet setting across the world with an Asian girlfriend we hardly mentioned. No, I really doubt that something's going to, happen in our lives. So you got those kind of things that are out there, but everything else, like the more kind of like down to earth Spider-Man stuff, yeah, totally we can relate to that. We're not going to have any of our loved ones, who died come back alive in a goddamn clusterfuck Clone Saga sequel.
Thank you, James. That's a perfect. James has provided me with the perfect segue into this news topic. Dead No More. Yeah.
Clone Saga 2. Just call it what it is. No, Clone Saga 3 if you count the 70s. Clone Saga 4 if you count Spider Island as a Clone Saga sequel.
Spider Island 5 if you count Spider-Verse. But yeah.
Oh, yeah, because there's clones in there too. In fact, they revealed that Morlan was a clone, which is actually creative. Because you had JMS who was just like, no, he's a vampire. That's why he turned to dust. It's all spiritual and supernatural and spooky and mystical. And then Dad's thoughts like, clone.
Yeah, so here's what we've got. Dead No More, they released a series of teaser images like throughout this past week, which was actually, I thought that was kind of a smart move to do, just like release a whole mural worth of an image, but split it up into 5 parts.
Because it changed people's opinions of the book. Like, me and John, like, each picture came out, I was like, oh, so the storyline's going to be like that. It has the people coming back with the fire. Does that mean Fisto's involved? And then you see the tentacles with Spider-Man, like, oh, it's just Doc Ock. Then you're like, oh, here's the Sinister Six and other villains that don't really look familiar. Oh, so I guess it could be, something like actual big. It's like, here's Gwen Stacy and freaking a guy in a red suit and a weird, god of death mask, I think is what it is, from the Egyptian lore. And he's like, you see that, and it's like, oh, so I guess it is Clone Saga Part 2.
And then you see Doc Ock right at the end, and it's just like, yep. James, how many months ago did we call this?
We called everything, I think.
I think we called literally everything.
Like, it's similar to WrestleMania this Sunday, and with a lot of wrestling fans, how they come up with these fan predictions, for the event. It sounds a lot more cool than what WWE is actually probably going to do. A lot of things has been going on with the storyline where you hear a lot of things from Mephisto being behind it and other fan theories. They sound pretty awesome, and it looks like right now it's just like it's going to be, nope, just generic Jekyll cloned a lot of people's dead loved ones to get him to work for him. Oh, and he also cloned all of Spider-Man's loved ones to mess with him, which we haven't already seen 100 fucking times in the Clone Saga.
I'm like, okay, look, here's my basic opinion on this. I think it could be good, and I am interested after seeing this mural. I'm more interested than I was when it was just in the phase of like, yeah, Dead No More. That's totally going to happen. That's totally going to be a thing. I think that the mural is intriguing enough, and it is nice to see like a lot of different stories coming together. You have the revival of Doc Ock. You have, you have the Jackal, who's been kind of a player in the background for a couple of years now, and you have the man in the red suit, who I guarantee, who we've said for months, since October, that's the Jackal. That's basically.
We thought it was Osborn for like after the first issue, because everybody thought, okay, going with the Green Goblin's line be the next arc, that made sense. And then it would turn out to not be Norman. And then after that, I think everybody across the internet, not just us, but everybody said it's the Jackal. There was somebody, like I said, who said, no, it's Mephisto, and they had all these tie-ins that actually, when you read it and you read it kind of like, that could actually fit. If they revealed it to be Mephisto, oh, wouldn't that be actually really great, because it actually connects. But no, looks like it's just going to be what we predicted. Jackal's going to clone a lot of bodies, and I guarantee you, because the whole world thinks Ock is dead, you don't know he's in the living brain, he's going to clone a Doc Ock body, and during the fight with the Doc Ock clone, that golden tentacle, spider's going to show up, prick Doc Ock on the neck, reprogramming the memories of Doc Ock's consciousness from post-700 into that clone. Guarantee it.
And of course, I mean, look, that could also bring something else up. Is that, what if that Ock body that, well, actually, no, this might not make sense, but remember way back, years ago, Superior Spider-Man number 21, Carly Cooper goes to Doc Ock's grave, because at that point, she thought that Peter Parker was in that body, which technically he was, and the grave was empty, and Ock's body was gone. Yeah, maybe the Jackal had something to do with that, because I was actually just thinking about that the other week as I was looking back through some Superior stuff. I was thinking, hey, whatever, like this was never even touched again. This is the only time you've ever heard of that. Maybe we're actually going to get something out of this, and that's something I'd actually like. But
well, it makes sense there. Jackal took the body because he needed to get Doc's DNA somehow to clone him.
So that makes more sense. And I do.
The body's decomposing. It's decomposing, and it's a shrivel of old Shelvin's former self. So it's probably most likely that he just took the body to get a DNA sample to reclone him.
So I do like that clearly Slott has been planting seeds for things for years. I like that. I like the the connecting dots of it all. Here's the thing, like, this story is not original. It's not original at all, but I think in a time, I don't know. It's just like, it's not bothering me that it's not really that original. It's just, it's not having much of an effect on me. It's like, if I like the story, I don't really give a crap that much. So here's my basic thoughts on this teaser. It looks nice. I think that there are some interesting aspects of it. The Uncle Ben's not going to come back. Uncle Ben's not going to come back. That's not going to happen. Dan Slott and Nick Lowe are promising at this moment seismic shifts to Spider-Man's world. Yeah, that sounds to me like, oh yeah, Doc Ock's going to come back. Yep.
Think about it. Spider-Man books have been promising that since they gave him the black suit in the 80s. Like, seriously, they've been promising some big event's going to happen that's going to shake the Spider-Man world. They promised that with the blacks in the 80s. They promised that when McFarlane came on the book. They promised that when McFarlane got his own solo book. They promised that in the Clone Saga. They promised that with the Becky Byrne reboot. They promised that when JMS jumped on the book. They promised that with Ultimate. They promised that with all the movie franchises and reboots. They promised it with the other. They promised it with Sins Past. They promised it with One More Day. I can go on and on and on and on and on.
Well, One More Day actually did shake the Spider-Man universe.
Yeah, but not in a good way.
But like, here's the thing. If the story is good, I will enjoy it. I mean, that's what I'm basically going to say here. And I'm not put off by this teaser. I'm not incredibly intrigued by it because it's a mural. It's a nice mural. It's a very nice looking piece of artwork, but overall, and plus, I think part of this is the fact that this story is still several months away, and so it's not really what's at the forefront of my brain at the moment in terms of Spider-Man. To be honest with you, it's not what I'm mainly looking forward to, and so I'm more interested in the story now than I was. I will say that I'm more inclined to get excited for it, but I'm not at this moment. At this moment, it's still too far out for me to even start feeling anything. But the mural is nice. It'll be nice to see Doc Ock back. It'll be nice to, I don't. It should be. I'm hoping it's a fun story. If just to sum up all of my 5 minutes of absolutely making no fucking sense at all, I'm hoping it's a fun story. So, James, thoughts?
I'm actually less intrigued because it's really looking predictable. Like really predictable to the point that do I even need to pick this up? Because if I already can guess what's going to happen, do I really want to waste my because there's going to be tie-ins and stuff like that to this event too. It's not just going to be an amazing. Do I really want to waste all my money on that for a story that I think I already know how it's going to end? Like, please, Marvel. I think this is not going to happen. I'm not Nostradamus or anything like that. I'm not psychic. I can't predict it. Surprise me. I'm begging you. Do something to shake it up. But right now, it's looking like it's going to be, what we think it's going to be. It's going to be one of those. It's going to shake the Spider-Man world universe forever. And I really think it might just come down to since the Gwen clone is the really prominent thing on that. It might just be, hey, we want Gwen Stacy back because movies and stuff like that. Why don't we just have it be in the clone and hush hush pretend like she's the real one? That might be it, and then she'll be around for a while before we realize, oh, that's stupid, and get rid of her again. Like literally, that's all. That I have no feelings for this right now. It's like if just like me and John, our first day of work. John, we're not really my first day of work because it was my second interview / orientation, and before we actually went up to our second interviews in our orientation because I went there early because hey, I'm at an interview with McDonald's. I'm hungry. I'm gonna get lunch, so I'm there eating a McDouble, large fry, soda pop, I'm just eating that, having a fun time. And I'm texting John as I'm seeing the last teaser coming, and I'm like, so, John, it looks like we were right. And John goes, well, yeah, we've been calling this for months now. I go, yeah, I know. How much you want to – my exact tweet back to him is – our text back to him is like, how much you want to bet that it's going to be Doc Ock, clone body, and that's how they're going to bring him back? And John goes, yep. And I go, too predictable. Like, literally, that was our whole conversation.
I think what I said exactly was, that sounds about right.
That sounds about right. And I go, yep, too predictable. Because this is what it's going to be. It's like, I'm more bitter off just waiting until I hear good things about it and then reading it on Marvel Unlimited. Like, right now, it's like, I think it's going to happen. I think that it's going to, this is all the story's going to go. And I'm a kind of guy who I don't mind spoilers. Because depending what the spoiler is, it can either make me really want to go see the movie or read the book or hear whatever it is. It's like, oh, great. I actually want to read that or whatever. This is kind of like, I hear this and it's like, no, this is something I don't want to read because it already sounds like something that it's like nothing to me. It's like, okay, they're going to do another Clone Saga, which I'm a fan of the Clone Saga, but it's going to bring back all these dead loved ones to torment Peter. Yay. It's like we've seen that before. I mean, goddamn Robo-Parents with Harry.
Yeah, so, I mean, that's really all we can say about this because all we got was the mural. So there's nothing, I mean, Slott talked a little bit in an interview, but there was nothing really significant said there.
It's typical comic writer. The book's months away. So I had to say, this book is coming, but I can't say anything about it. So it's all generic. Oh, this book's going to be the best I ever written, and it's going to completely change the world as you see it with this character. That every comic book writer says about every storyline because they can't talk about it.
So
I mean, just God, look at the DC Rebirth panel. Half the time, the creators from that were like, "Here's the cover of it. I wish I could tell you what's going on in that cover, but I can't. It's hush hush. They'll kill me. And then you had other people who were spoiling things, and it was completely hilarious. They're like, yeah, and then you got Supergirl's father, who's going to be Cyborg Superman, and everybody's like, what? And he's like, oh crap, I guess I shouldn't have said that.
All right, so that's really all we can say about the Dead No More teaser. It's just a mural, and we don't really have much to say about it. But we will segue into a bit of a review session for this week. Now, James was the one who picked out what we were going to talk about this week. Those of you who have been longtime viewers of the show, or maybe have just gone into the back episodes, watched our YouTube archives, you may know that a long time ago, it was probably like a year and a half. Jan and I actually sat down and talked about Amazing Spider-Man number 300. And I don't remember exactly why James wasn't on that show, but I think he was supposed to be, and he just couldn't be for whatever reason.
No, that was the day when we had that bad snowstorm here in Wisconsin, and my internet connection was really bad. I tried to call in you guys to join up with it at the beginning, and I kept on losing the signal. Remember?
Oh yeah. And so James has wanted to talk about ASM 300 for a very long time, and so he's finally going to get the chance to do that on this episode. And plus, after we do that, we're also going to take a look at Amazing Spider-Man number 316 and 317, because that is the next chronological Venom story, at least in Amazing Spider-Man, and I'm pretty sure like anywhere. So, James, I'll just hand it over to you. ASM 300. David Michelinie, writer, Todd McFarlane, art, Rick Parker, letters, Bob Sharon, colors, Jim Salicrop, editor, and Tom DeFalco, editor-in-chief. This is, of course, the first main full appearance of Venom. This is the first battle between Venom and Spider-Man. And James, from what I understand, this is one of your favorite issues, so this is why you really wanted to come back and sort of talk about this issue.
I would have to say, if you put a gun in my head and asked me what was my favorite issue of Spider-Man, I had to name off just one, I would probably 9 times out of 10 name off this one. I mean, I really enjoy the story. I love it. I've always said, especially when it's like kind of not even double size, but like quadruple size, how it is. It could almost be like that's how Spider-Man 3 should have been, kind of thing. It's like I could see this book if you update it, modern, change the hairstyle, change the cultural references, maybe 2016, modern day. This can work as a movie. Just change the pop culture references and Mary Jane's style and stuff like that, and Harry's style and the haircuts and the Bambi twins or whatever the hell they're called in this. The triplet chicks that are the stereotypical hot 80s aerobics chicks that are in everything. And you could really get a good movie out of this, I think, because it's a really solid story. It's like the second arc with McFarlane and Michelinie's run, which is now classic. I'm not really the biggest McFarlane fan. He's not Ramos bad. But I just always been kind of like I just don't really like that 90s image style. I'm a kid of the 90s, but that 90s image style, like the Liefeld-y stuff, I'm just not really a big fan of it. To the point that I still remember reading my first McFarlane comic, which was the Green Goblin one, because of a trade paperback, and I was getting the great Tom McFarlane. I was like, oh, that was it. I didn't really like the artwork that much. But besides that, this like really where their run really kicks up, and it's because it's a really great story. Basic sum up of it really quickly to get through it is pretty much Mary Jane is scared the living life out of her by Venom. Peter shows up wearing the exact same costume because at the time he's wearing the cloth version, the black suit. Mary Jane is freaking the hell out. I mean, like Peter says, this is the most strongest woman I have ever known in my life. This is Mary Jane Watson, face tiger, you hit the jackpot. And she's cowardly, in the fetal position, crying like a child, hearing the monster underneath their bed in their head. She is freaking out.
In her defense, as you do when you see a giant monster.
No, that's not a negative. I'm just describing the scene. Like how Mary Jane is, and she is this I don't want to say pathetic, but you know what I mean. Like she's very helpless in this comic. And then you got the iconic scene that the animated series, adapts perfectly of Eddie Brock just pumping iron as he's looking at the wall of the Spider-Man pictures, and then the ooze, crawling all over him. It's just classic Venom. And you got Peter, of course, then giving out the exposition of, all repeating, Secret Wars and Web of Spider-Man #1 and all that. Oh, it's a symbiote. And it was making me do bad things. So I ripped it off in the church tower, and now the suit obviously is back and it's wanting revenge on me. Blah blah blah. Mary Jane and Peter, after having sexy time in a hotel because they left for a hotel because she didn't want to be in the same house with that nut job, who knows where they live, says, hey, Peter, we can get into this really cool, super awesome, like super rich, like Norman Osborn can't even afford it, penthouse in the middle of Manhattan. It's totally awesome. We should, and totally not run by a stalker who's going to try to kidnap you a couple times. So she pretty much says we need. I'm a big time supermodel / soap opera star right now. I can afford this for us, Peter. Let's get the house. And of course, that leads to Peter Parker. I wish I'm the man of the house. I should be the breadwinner. Parker, look, that kind of classic saying that comes out because of it. My wife, I'm her sugar. She's my sugar mommy, kind of like that's the way Peter feels about Mary Jane in a lot of these early episodes, especially when her career's taking off. So you got that kind of stuff going on with that their kind of wedding drama. Peter not making it much as Mary Jane. You got a really cool thing is Peter gets the sonic gun, so that way when he gets to the symbiote, he can zap the crap out of him. And then you get this really cool montage of Peter literally walking around everywhere around town, and Eddie Brock is there, and he doesn't recognize the same guy's following him because A, there's no spider sense because Venom doesn't trigger the spider sense, and B, each time he turns around, he looks differently because the symbiote can change clothing and make you look a little bit differently. So he's completely got Peter to a disadvantage. Then Mary Jane and Peter see the apartment, decide to take it, and then at sexy photo time, I'm not bullshitting you. They go to Aunt May's house, have a party where Mary Jane looks completely awkward and weird for a party with Aunt May, how she has never dressed in a million years. She's like dressed up for like a party at the ballroom in the Titanic for a normal night out with Aunt May. It's like really weird.
I mean, this is going to sound stereotypical, but this is literally what happens to go do dishes at Aunt May's house.
I'm not kidding you. Like, see, like stereotypical rich person in the 80s, like that Dallas Dynasty kind of shoulder pad dress and the hair done up that way. Like really like blinging jewelry that's like popping out. She's dressed this way, and everybody else is at the boarding house are like Aunt May and looking the same way she has always looked. It's like completely out of place, the new modern 80s Mary Jane. It's like completely out of place for these scenes. It's like she used to dress normal with normal people, but now she has to be, we're the highest, totally not out of date by nowadays standards, 80s styles. So yeah, we got more Venom stuff happens. As Peter Parker's moving in, Venom is like getting ready for his master plan at the church. Peter sees Venom, and when he's at the, they're at the balcony, he's talking to Robbie, I believe it is, and as this is going on, he sees Venom and he goes after him and they start a fight. Peter figures out then that A, it doesn't work, and B, the mystery of who was the secret man trying to kill him, a guy who we never fucking saw before in the comics up until now, Eddie Brock. And they tie him into the backstory of the Sin Eater. Like, yeah, literally. Eddie Brock, how every other version of how the story is told, he is there as the other Bugle, like photographer / reporter who Peter's the rival, who gets the black suit because Peter proves that his stories was stories for bullshit. That's not really what happens here. He's just a reporter / photographer who wrote a story about the Sin Eater to get famous, where somebody claimed that they were the Sin Eater, and he wrote the story. And then the same day, just happened to be the day that Spider-Man revealed who the real Sin Eater was, and he blamed Peter Parker for it. And he blames Peter Parker took the photo, and Spider-Man was the guy who caught him. He blamed them both for it. He happened to be in the church wanting to kill himself, and I believe he found out he had cancer. And then him and the black suit just bonded with their double hatred for Spider-Man and Peter Parker. And then the rest is history, let's just say, with Venom. They fight in the church tower. Venom is kicking his ass. It's classic Spider-Man Venom fight. And then finally, Peter, thanks to the bells, again, is able to defeat Eddie Brock. And there's some cool imagery, like Eddie wanting to kill Spider-Man with the bell tower and, dressed up like a priest because he believes that he's killing the greatest sin in his life. And it's really religious because that's how Eddie Brock's character is. He's a very religious character. It's really handled well. They fight. Peter ends up defeating the symbiote by cutting his webbing, knowing that the webbing's not real. It's actually the black suit. So if they keep on cutting it, he's eventually going to run out of ooze, a symbiote. And he does. He crashes. He doesn't die, though, because, comics and Spider-Man can't kill Venom. He brings him to the Fantastic Four, and they're going to take care of the black suit with Eddie Brock, and And then they have adventures where there's a few times where like it's like either Giants or Franklin Richard, I believe, who keep on walking up to the black suit and they're like, are they gonna bomb with it? It's gonna become a Fantastic Four villain? No. But story ends with Mary Jane saying, yeah, I don't want you to wear the same suit as the goddamn psychopath who nearly killed me in our apartment. Yeah, go back in your classic costume. And he says, you know what? I kind of like the classic costume better than the black suit anyways. So Peter picks up Mary Jane, calls her the greatest, gives her a big kiss, and he goes swinging off in his red and blues, swearing to never wear the black suit again, except for, the 4 or 5 times he did, including Back in Black and McFarlane's solo run and Howard Mackie reboot and blah, 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 blah. You get the joke.
All right, James. And so I'm not going to give my opinion on ASM 300 because I already did that on a previous episode. And so I will just let you have full reins of this. ASM 300, tell us what you like. Tell us anything you may not like. Give us everything you want. Unload your thoughts on us.
My dislike is the artwork. I mean, like I said, I'm not a McFarlane fan. He's not the worst Spider-Man artist by far. He's middle ground for me. I don't hate him, but I don't love him. I love the artwork either. I like it to tolerate, depending on the issue or whatever's going on in the fight. Because it is just not my kind of style. Like the way he draws people, like his Spider-Man and his superhero fights are beautiful. Don't get me wrong. Some of those imagery of him and Venom are epic. But when you see actually Eddie Brock with the super 90s over-the-top details, and you see Mary Jane in the totally 80s model who's totally not supposed to be a penthouse, penthouse playmate or whatever. She's not supposed like that's what she looks like. They claim they're trying to make her like an 80s super model. It's like I could tell what kind of models you were looking at when you guys were drawing Mary Jane. Let's just say. Yeah, so you got that going on. The artwork is just like not that good. I mean, Jonah looks like Hitler with a floating cigar half the time in his mouth. It's not that good of artwork. I'm just not a fan of his. I know you hate me if you want. I'm just not a fan of McFarlane art. Yeah. So that's like, well, and the only negative too would be like, and I don't know if you can even say this because it's a comic in the 80s, but the story is timeless. But there's things around it that aren't, like the Mary Jane hairstyles and the other people. Like there's a joke at a guy at the party where he has a really over the top 80s mohawk with pink hair, and he looks at hair and he goes, "Wow, you got a crappy hairstyle." And I don't know if this was meant to be the joke. Like that was the joke. It's that like look who's talking. But now when I read that panel, it's like, well, who the hell are you to make fun of Harry Osborn's haircut, Mr. Super Long Pink Mohawk that goes out to here? So yeah, you got that kind of stuff, and of course the Mary Jane. I mean, like we said, she looks like she's ready for some fancy '80s ball, and and it's a normal Sunday night dinner out with Aunt May. It's completely out of place. I mean, look at her. Like she can't even help really with the dishes because her legs are too tight in that dress, John. So those are my only 2 negatives. The rest of it is very positive. I love Eddie Brock. Yeah, it's somebody who, because Eddie wasn't even going to be the reveal. The reveal was going to be a chick who husband and her unborn child died during a Spider-Man fight. And that was the reason for revenge. And then pretty much like the Marvel editors-in-chiefs went up to Michelini because he was going to do that storyline in Web during his Web run. And they said, yeah, don't make it a woman because we don't want our flagship superhero to get his ass kicked by a woman, even when she has the black suit. So they changed it. So the story got scrapped and he finally got to use it for 300 and he changed it to Eddie Brock. So that part's kind of weird, but now because of Eddie's history, he's been fleshed out, and arguably Eddie and Venom is like the number 3 Spider-Man villain behind Doc Ock and Green Goblin. But besides, him being kind of rushed in here and being added retconned into stuff now with the Sinister storyline, it's still a really good backstory. Eddie Brock is a great character, and Venom there's a reason why he's now the number 3 Spider-Man villain, arguably. It is really good, and a lot of it stems from this issue. It is really awesome, this first Venom issue. The Peter and Mary Jane stuff, some people complain about it, and I make the joke too. There's a lot of panels in here where Mary Jane is either the stereotypical girlfriend, which she should be. And what I mean by that, not to sound sexist, is, a goddamn murder psychopath who grew a goddamn slimy, giant tongue, teeth, mouth is saying he's going to kill you and your husband. You're going to freak out a little bit, aren't you, John? A guy who looks identical to your husband, except he has a big monstrous mouth who's saying, I'm gonna eat your brains, I'm Venom. Oh no, we are Venom. Spider-Man 3 fucked that up. You know, Gene Simmons tongue and all that stuff. You're going to be freaked out. So Dad give a pass, and the other stuff where Peter's all like, he sees Mary Jane in her nightgown when she's scared half to death by Venom, and he's like, Mary Jane, if you're calling room service for breakfast, I know what I want for breakfast. Bow, chunka, wow, wow. And then you got the whole Mary Jane and him where he's all depressed because, oh, I can't buy our house, Mary Jane. I'm the man of the house. I should be the one paying for everything. I'm so depressed. Curse that Parker Law. And then she's like, I know what'll cheer him up. Time for boobs. It's like, I get that. But at the same time, in context, they're newlyweds. Newlyweds are going to have a lot of sexy time with each other. I would be okay if it's a storyline like, you know, when they were still married, like around One More Day and Back in Black, which they argue, which and then I think back then they had done that a few times with Mary Jane and Peter, even up to the night. Then I could say, oh, it's just they're just using her for sex. Here, it's in context. It makes sense because they're newlyweds. They're going to be horn dogs wanting to jump in the sack with each other every 2 seconds. They literally have only been married for less than a year in the comics. So in Marvel time, they're even more newlyweds than they are in real time, and it's already only been like around 6 months they've been wedded in the comics. Give the couple a break. Mary Jane can have sexy time with her husband because they're newlyweds. That's normal. It's not sexist, people.
All right, James. So
and I'm not boasting you. That's literally how it is when they go to their new apartment at the Bedford Towers. It is basically that. It's like he's depressed because he can't buy the place. So she's like, I know what can perk him up. How about some private pictures? And her top drops. And it's like, Peter's emotions and something else rises. We cut to another scene. Like the narration box is literally that.
They're talking about his adrenaline, people. That's what he's talking. That's what they're talking about. All right, James.
And totally not Spider-Man having on-the-ceiling sex with his supermodel wife at the vacant new apartment they own. Totally, that's not what's going on there.
All right, James. Any other thoughts on 300?
I think I said it all. You know, I'm trying to keep this short and quick, as short as quick I can get for a quadruple-size comic. But yeah, it's everything. I like it. Good story. It's not that really good, but I think the story and Venom are really good. You can see why the story goes for almost like Ditko money, you know, when you see it on websites. There's a reason why this issue is a lot of dough, and why my reprint copy of this from like one of these Spider-Man, you know, classics or friends, you know what I mean? One of the reprint books did it, and I got it, and I'm like, that's probably I'm keeping that copy nice, because at least right now, that's the only copy I'm gonna be able to buy.
All right, so we will move on here to ASM number 316. This is the second Venom story arc. Just to give a little bit of context here, in the previous issue, Eddie Brock had managed to break himself out of Riker's prison, and so now he is on the run, and he's planning his revenge against Spider-Man for his defeat at his hands at the end of 300, and plus, you know, the whole journalism ruined his life thing. So we got the same creative team as number 300, and James is also going to recap this issue as well. So, James, why don't you run down what happens in ASM number 316 for us?
First, I just want to say, for a guy as religious as Eddie Brock, I want to know, was this a coincidence, or did they totally plan, we're going to bring back Venom in issue 316?
Okay, here's the
John 316. Am I making a reference to John 316?
Yeah. Okay.
No, it's like when you hear this is ASM 316 and it's the second Venom story, it like weirdly fits with the whole religious theme that kind of goes on with Venom.
You're talking to someone who has who religion just I don't know.
No, I'm just saying. No, I don't know. I wonder if that's a coincidence or not. That's all I'm saying. Well, anyways, the story begins with Venom in the sewer chasing after some dude. He's starting to look like in the other issue. He was basically a more bulkier Spider-Man with, you know, teeth. Here, he's starting to look like that more classic Venom, you know, what you imagine with the slime and the tongue and everything. This is where that Venom's really coming out right now in these artwork. So he's going around, he's pretty much just pumping iron looking for Spider-Man. The same shit he was doing in 300. Peter's, you know, paying attention to what happened in the issue before. There's a wrecked building, you know, he's blood swinging. He goes by the goddamn bridge because, you know, how many times does Spider-Man need to swing by that same goddamn bridge? Then he goes to the Bugle. You got normal shit. You got more of Mary Jane, and she, of course, has to be in some sexy model pose because it's McFarlane era. And she's on the phone with Peter, and they're talking about crap. And it's right after the whole Jonathan Caesar crap is, and it's pretty much just like, Mary Jane, are you okay? Yes. Okay, I'm checking up on you. Okay. Then we see Black Cat, who's totally also has that whole kind of 80s thing going on with a mullet. I kid you not, Black Cat has a mullet in this comic. And she's looking for Peter because, she went to his apartment and said, you know what, after we broke up, I decided, yeah, let's get back together. And she goes there and some other dudes living there now because they left after 300. So she's looking for Spider-Man, and she thinks she finds him by seeing a guy in a black suit, but only it turns out to be Venom, who beats the shit out of her, turning her into an evil bitch. Oh wait, wrong storyline.
No, we're not at the bitch in black parts yet.
Then you got Venom, like, really brutally, like, I mean, like, super, like, comic book says man on women violence all the time, and both going both ways, like Wonder Woman punching the shit out of a guy and vice versa. This is very brutal. He's like ripping up her clothing. Like, there's a panel where where Black Cat is literally kneeled down with her back exposed, and there's all these scratches on it. It is very disturbing to look at while he's pulling her hair out. And then Venom lets the secret that Peter never told his ex-girlfriend. Yeah, I'm married now.
Whoops.
Because it's handled really good. Because Venom's like, you were his last girlfriend before I find him, and you don't know where he's at. Well, I'm not surprised. His wife wasn't much help either. And then she's like, wait, wife? Which actually causes the events that happens in this Return to Sinister 6. If you want to hear our opinions of that, go back and watch our Return to Sinister 6 episode. So, yeah, you got more of Mary Jane. She's saying goodbye to everybody at the Bedford Towers because they got kicked out because Jonathan Caesar's a rich asshole. And even though he gets arrested, the stereotype about rich people pretty much happens is that he kidnapped and attempted to murder a world-famous supermodel, but he got money, so he was able to bail himself out. The trial was rigged, and he was able to make Mary Jane's life a living hell. And he was untouchable because he bought off the cops. So, yeah, she's saying goodbye, and she sees Venom, and then Peter goes back to their house, and then Mary Jane's all sad, and, she's in her bedroom, and she's like, their bedroom, and she's like, Peter, Venom's back, and she's holding a teddy bear, and it's kind of really weird for Mary Jane, if you ask me, but whatever. Then he goes around, and he, like, has, like, Mary Jane's nylons, and he's covering it up on his mouth, and he's all like, this is Spider-Man. Why is Venom out of jail?
I just noticed that.
And he's all like, this is Spider-Man. Why is Venom out of jail? And they're like, he broke out. Well, why didn't you tell Spider-Man? And they're like, we never tell you when your villains get out. Damn it! He hangs up the phone. They do know. They never tell him. I get it now. It's different. He's in a long-term domestic relationship. I get it. So it's different now. But still, it's like he's all like, why didn't you tell me, Venom? What if he comes up for my family? They're like, well, you never worried about that before. Damn it! And he hangs up the phone there. Like, literally, that's the conversation. He holds Mary Jane and pretty much says, I'm going to fuck up Venom. And, of course, when he goes to find Venom, he doesn't find Venom. Venom finds him because the whole non-Spider-Sense thing. They fight in a meatpacking plant. Venom's, like, ripping up, meat and throwing it at Spider-Man. It's actually kind of disgusting. They fight, and Venom gets the upper hand, to be continued in 317.
All right, James, what are you thinking of ASM 316 here?
It's a good issue. It's a really good sequel. There's some parts where it's pretty clear that they're, like, copying, what they already did. Because, like, it's like, oh, here's Eddie Brock pumping iron saying, I hate Spider-Man. Like, we haven't seen that already. And, the Mary Jane and Peter thing with her seeing him and him have to go love something and try to find the guy at the creep, that is, like, again, from 300. It's almost like you could have done something else there. The Black Cat thing, like I said, is brutal. Like, you look at her, he, like, ripped almost all her clothes off. Like, it's bad. And it's not just, like, ripping all her clothes off to be sexy time. I mean, like, they did that so that you can see the scars he gave her. And, of course, it sets up the whole Black Cat wanting revenge. How I make this joke all the time with the way she was shown post-Superior Black Cat she's been showing. Is like, Black Cat finds out Spider-Man got married. Her master plan here is, I'm going to date his best friend, and I'm going to torture Mary Jane by saying I might do something, but really I'm not really going to do that because it's just the fun of just telling her I'm going to do something to be the murderous psychopathic bitch she is now. So that really sets up, the Black Cat, what's going to happen with her in Flash and later issues. That's actually pretty well done. Venom's, once again, it's a really good character, and it's built from there. Peter and Mary Jane have some good moments together in this issue, even though the teddy bear thing does kind of feel weird. Like, it's one thing to say that she's freaked out by Venom, and it's another thing to show her, like, where she's all cutesy with short shorts holding the teddy bear, like, Peter, baby, he's back. Like, that part I do agree. It is kind of like, soap opera, Lois Lane, telling Superman that Lex Luthor's out together for the 10,000th time. But besides that, it's a good issue, and pretty much for instance, repeat what I said about 300. The arts might only roll downside with it.
All right. My thoughts on it. I think this is a fairly decent issue. I don't think it's really anything spectacular. Like James said, it really does take a lot from 300. There's a lot of repeated things in here. Like, for the purposes of this podcast, we're just coming off of 300. And so looking at it like this, you see a lot of the same story beats, especially like when you read the two issues back to back. I will talk about the Black Cat scene in here because that is really interesting because, I mean, it's just, look at this panel that I keep holding up to the camera of her going right into the wall. That's like,
it's the next page is the one that gets me, like I said, where she's like almost like Mary Jane curl up in the ball like she is, and her back, like, look at that. They're not doing it for sexy time. They're doing it to see, look at all the scratch marks.
Oh yeah. Yeah, it's brutal and just, it's incredible the lengths they went to in this.
This ain't stereotypical Black Cat. Let's show her in a bubble bath. We make those jokes about her in the pocket. We're showing how fucked up Venom is. The fact he did this because in his mind, Black Cat, Mary Jane, they're not innocent because they loved Spider-Man. So if they loved a guy who's not innocent, they're not innocent either too. So I'm not afraid to fuck them up. It shows.
It's like when I say like it's incredible that they went here. It's like, it's just like, I don't mean that as in like it's a good thing that this happened to Black Cat because that's not a good thing because I like this character. But like two, it's just like it's unbelievable just the lengths they go to really show how much of a threat Venom is, and I think it's really well done on that front.
It's a good scene, it's a good scene and a good moment, not because man hitting woman, that's so awesome. It's not that at all, like complete opposite of that. It's a good scene because it makes you emotionally invested. When you're watching this, you feel bad for Felicia. You're like, holy shit, this is the Black Cat, and Venom is making her too in the fetal position, crying, wanting this to stop. And it's not to demote them because they're women. It's because Venom's that badass. Venom is that evil.
Yeah, but I don't really think there's much else to talk about with this issue. I mean, like the Spider-Man Venom fight at the end, it's fairly short, but it's good enough. I think it serves its purpose well. I do find the scene of Peter talking and yelling on the phone to be quite humorous. Just the way James, too. Just the way James described it is actually it makes it kind of funny.
What happened? He calls them and goes, "Why didn't you tell me Venom escaped from jail?" And they're pretty much like, "Well, we never tell you." And he's like, "Well, I got a family. Again, we never call you." And he's like, "Damn it!" And he hangs up the phone and he hugs Mary Jane, going, "I'll find him. Don't worry, Mary Jane. I'll find him."
But yeah, I mean, other than that, there's not really much to this issue. It's just like a setup issue to this arc. So, I mean, I think it's fine for what it is. I don't really have anything to say. I don't really have anything to say against it. I'm not really the biggest fan of McFarlane's art, but I think I've covered that already on previous podcasts. So there's nothing really groundbreaking that I can say there. But besides that, there's nothing really I can say against the issue. So I will move on now to 317, the final issue that we're going to cover tonight. I will be recapping this one. We got the same creative team as the last issue, or actually as the previous two issues, actually. The issue starts off, Peter Parker is at his home in is at Aunt May's house in Forest Hills. And he says, "Look, I have to act normal. So Eddie Brock's out of prison. So he's going to come after us. So he could figure out where we live. So what? I can't let Aunt May figure out that I'm worried. I have to put on my happy Pete face. So I'm going to take her out shopping. And I'll just think about Venom the whole time. Because, that's a good plan, I guess." I don't really know how this man thinks. I don't know what his definition of a good plan is, but evidently that's a good plan to him. So
in Parker luck, his plan doesn't work. Like literally 2 seconds later, it doesn't work.
after you, pretty lady, can't keep those sales clerks waiting. You know. Hey, buddy. Real quaint. Homie. Who is it, dear? Eddie Brock, ma'am. Dear friend of Peter's. And you must be Aunt May. Heard so much about you. Eddie and I have to have a little talk, Aunt May. Be seeing you, ma'am. What a nice man. So polite. Anyone who didn't get that...
It's the classic Aunt May's a dumbass for thinking the supervillains are nice guys.
Anyone who didn't get that reference, I just quoted line for line a scene from the 90s show. Alien Costume Part 3.
You want to know what the thing is? That's literally what the panel says.
That's pretty much what it is. That's why I did it, because it's like...
The only difference is you got these really weird moments where Aunt May is, or dumbass Aunt May happens, where he's like, yeah, me and Peter are such good friends, as he's like putting his arm on Peter's shoulder, and she doesn't look over and notice that he's growing this black goo arm, which is choking Peter to a wall.
It's better than the fact that in the 90s show he literally tips a tree over and Aunt May doesn't even come out to see what the hell's going on. Because let me tell you,
dude, she's right. Dude, I'm looking at the panel right now. She is literally right there. Well, he's like,
no, I'm talking about
the arm at Peter.
I'm talking about the 90s show. But yeah, so Eddie and Peter walk away. He's like, at least Aunt May's out of danger. But what now? I give up, Brock. How did you find me? You left some clothing behind at our previous encounter. Yeah? So what? Oh no! I was so upset about the clothes that I forgot I had the change of address forms in my pocket. So he's like, why don't you fight me right here, right now? Because a battle in the suburbs might hurt innocent people. I like to avoid that when possible. And so he's like, there's a estate on Long Island, Seacrest, on the tip of Montauk. I want you to meet me there tomorrow. At sunup, the place is deserted in winter, so we won't be disturbed. I'll be there. Yes, so will we. So Peter goes off and says, fine, you know what? I'll show up, but you know who's going to be with me? The Fantastic Four. So he goes over to the Baxter building. He tells Ben Grimm about the situation. And, Ben Grimm's like, yeah, totally, Spidey. You need us. We'll be right there with you this whole time. And just at that moment, Peter rocks back home and says, you! And look who's in the yard with Aunt May. Your friend Eddie dropped by for a visit, Peter. He's such a helpful young man. Yeah, he's a regular Boy Scout, Aunt May. Here, come on, friend. You and me got to talk. Peter, but I need help with the laundry. Don't worry, Aunt May. I'll be right back. I just need to talk to Eddie. Where do you get off hassling my family? I thought this was between us. That's right. You and me. Not the Fantastic Four. What? How did you? For someone who's survived this line of work for so long, you're embarrassingly easy to follow. God damn it! I rely on my spider sense to alert me when people are following me. But Venom doesn't trigger my spider sense. Be on the beach at Montauk tomorrow morning, Spider-Man. Alone. Or nasty things could start happening to all sorts of people. That bother you? Hey, call a cop. And he shapeshifts into a cop at that moment. He's got me, and he knows it. Maybe it's time I had a serious talk with my better half. Or more appropriately, my next of kin. And so Peter talks to Mary Jane. He tells her what he plans to do. You're crazy. Tag with your secret identity. Let's call in the Marines. It's not that easy. It's never that easy. Listen, I have to do this. I have to. I guess you're right, but I'm so frightened for you. Please, darling, get some kind of help for me. All right, MJ, for you. And so what kind of help does he get? He goes to a psychiatrist. That will actually make more sense later. And so he goes to the psychiatrist, and they have a talk like off panel. It just shows him showing up at the office. They don't actually show the conversation in the book. Peter goes to the Seacrest place and says, "Just hope the advice Doc Jefferson gave me will be enough. I told him the whole story, and he said the symbiote showed signs of a classic love-hate relationship for me. It was spurned out of love, so its emotions have taken an opposite direction, but the core feeling there is still love. So I guess
it's a psycho ex-girlfriend.
Yeah, basically. So all of a sudden, at that at that moment, Eddie Brock decides to say, "Top of the morning to you." And so Spider-Man goes flying. They do battle. Eddie gets some pretty good licks in. I mean, it's very clear that Eddie's the one who's really winning this fight for the most of it. Every attack Spider-Man's having is basically bouncing off of him. At one point, it gets to Spider-Man is hit with a javelin of broken wood, and he falls into the water. Venom comes over, and he's just about to drown him. "I'm through. I can't win. I can't. I have to give up, but I can't. Wait a minute. There's something I need to say. Eddie, I need to say this." "What?" "Save Martha." "What? Why do you say that name? Why do you say that name?"
It's his mother's name.
"Save Martha, Eddie. He's got Martha. Save Martha. Why do you say that name?"
And Eddie Brock is the one who's confused because literally, who the fuck is Martha?
No, so Spider-Man.
That is literally wrong continuity. That's literally wrong comic company.
Yeah, but Spider-Man. What actually happens? What Spider-Man decides to do is say, "You want me, Eddie? Let's rip off the clothes. Come get me. Come get me, Eddie. Take your shot." What?
It completely got wrong in so many different ways. Thank you, John.
No more fun? I'm not talking to you, Brock. I'm talking to the alien. You wanted to be part of me. Well, now I want you. Come and get me. Save your best, Spider-Man. It won't do any. Costume trembling, as if unsure, starting to float. "Wait, I gave you a home. We shared a beautiful hatred. You can't do this to me." So the symbiote
I thought what we had was special. SpongeBob reference for the people who don't get it.
"You just wanted the cookie in your pocket."
The symbiote. That's the symbiote. Eddie Brock was the cookie in the pocket.
Oh, man. "Patrick, I didn't know you spoke bird." "No, that's Italian, SpongeBob." "Is this the Krusty Krab?" "No, this is Patrick." "Is this the Krusty Krab?" "No, this is Patrick." "Is this the Krusty Krab?" "No, this is Patrick." Anyone who watches SpongeBob will get what those references are to. All right, but so the symbiote tries to rebond to Peter, but what actually happens is because it's so deeply tied to Eddie, it can't completely separate itself. So when it tries to bond itself,
John, I got a question to ask you. What is now leaving Bikini Bottom? I saw a sign. It says you are now leaving Bikini Bottom.
what? I didn't see. Oh my God! So yeah, Spider-Man and Eddie are basically both knocked out by the symbiote because it can't handle bonding to two people at once. Eventually, it goes back to Eddie because it's more deeply connected to him. Well, the alien couldn't sever its ties with Eddie completely, but the pain must have been too much, knocked them both out. Better find a phone, get Ben Grimm to pick up the garbage, and then catch a bus back to Queens. Tell Mary Jane it's over. Yes, I'm just imagining Peter going up to the bus in his underwear, like he currently is, and just saying, and the bus driver just says, "Just another day in New York City."
No, I like it. His whole thought is, yeah, it's finally over between me and Venom. Now, currently in the comic books, one of his best friends is Venom.
Okay, but that's the end of the issue. My thoughts on this issue, I think it's pretty good. I like the mind games that Eddie plays with Peter. You know, that scene where he shows up in Aunt May's yard is really, really creepy. Like where he's doing the laundry with her. That is just
it's really super over the top creepy though when you think about it though.
Yeah, but that's right.
Because they got Mary Jane upstairs in their bedroom, like freaking the fuck out because Eddie Brock is in the downstairs, is down there in the lawn.
Yeah, I think it's funny.
Well, Aunt May is all like, "What a nice Eddie Brock." Doo-ba-doo. Well, Mary Jane is upstairs like screaming for bloody murder that the guy who scared the living shit out of her is down there.
Yeah, I found it funny, so I like that moment. I like the battle between Spider-Man and Venom. I thought it was well done. I enjoyed that moment quite a bit. I joked. I had to make the BVS joke. I absolutely had to make that Batman vs Superman joke. But yeah, I enjoyed that overall. I like the use of psychology in Peter's fight against Venom because it shows that, like, even though Venom has all of Spider-Man's powers and is probably stronger than him, he's not smarter, and that's why Spider-Man wins, and that's why he beats him. So I like that continuing theme. Again, the only complaint I have is the artwork, but I mean, other than that, I don't have anything to say against this issue. It's perfectly solid. I really enjoy it. I love the fact that the '90s show adapted parts of it so well that I could quote, I could make verbatim quotes from that cartoon, and they fit accurately to the scenes. So yeah, other than that, I give this entire two-parter a thumbs up. It's perfectly solid. It's a really good Venom story, and I really enjoy it. So James, what are you thinking of ASM 317 here?
It's a really good issue. There's some momentum chances. The final fight is pretty good until you get to the little kind of really weird Peter getting naked and telling the symbiote, "You want me? Come get me, baby." and it literally is the whole. Eddie Brock is the goddamn cookie in the pants pocket. He really is. I'm sorry to laugh at that. The Aunt May moment, while it's classic, and like Lord, even before I read this comic, I knew the scene because of the animated series of Eddie Brock coming out the door up to the doorstep with Aunt May. It's just I don't really like that scene though in the context now, because it's once again more that dumbass Aunt May can't tell a bad guy, but yet she thinks Spider-Man's a creep, kind of thing. The guy who actually has risked his life to save her, she hates because the Bugle says he's evil. But guys like Eddie Brock, she thinks they're sweet, nice guys. And then, like I said, she's saying all that while Mary Jane's fucking upstairs, like freaking the hell out that Eddie Brock is downstairs. The guy because Peter could have solved the situation in 2 seconds instead of playing along with Eddie. He could have, as soon as Eddie left, turned to Aunt May and goes, "If that guy comes back again, you call the cops." Because I played that straight for you so that he wouldn't hurt you, but this guy's a fucking psychopath who's obsessed with me, and he scared the living shit out of Mary Jane, and he threatened her physically and mentally. If he shows up here again with my wife, you call the cops. I don't care how nice you thought he was. He's not. Trust me, he's a psychopath who's obsessed with me because of a story years ago. Call the cops, Aunt May. I'm your nephew. Trust me on this. But he doesn't do that. He just plays along with it. Because we got to have more of that Aunt May, I think the supervillain's a nice guy and Spider-Man's the creep. That we've seen 100 times. So yeah, you got that. The artwork, not that good. It's a good issue. It's just, those things kind of, irk me, But it cheers me up, thinking about the whole fact that Eddie Brock is Patrick with the cookie in his pocket. And
I never thought of that, James.
And the unintentional goddamn Batman vs Superman tie-in.
Oh man, okay. So James, do you give this a thumbs up, a thumbs sideways, or a thumbs down?
300 gets 2 thumbs up. 316 gets a thumbs up, and then the final issue gets a slightly going down, but still thumbs up.
All right, that's going to conclude our reviews for this week, and that's also pretty much going to conclude this main episode of the podcast. We don't really have anything else to talk about. So now we are going to do, like, in this shout-out section, I'm just going to put it out there right now. James has said he wants to talk about BVS very quickly. And I'm going to talk about Daredevil Season 2 very quickly. So if you don't want spoilers for those things, if you haven't seen either of those things, turn off now. We'll give you some time. But turn off now.
Spoiler alert, Batman turned out to be Superman's father. Who would have believed that, John?
Yeah, that was a shock. That was a real shock. But yeah, so turn off now. We thank you all for listening. We thank you all for watching, and we'll just say spoilers ahoy in 5, 4,
Rosebud's a slide.
3, 2, 1.
Vader's Luke's father.
BVS, James, that sure was a movie. That sure was a movie.
Meh. I like it's the same opinion I had with Man of Steel. I saw Man of Steel. I like it because there's a lot of parts in there I like. But the movie was really long, and it also had a lot of parts I didn't like. For one, there are 3 pretty good supporting cast members for the characters in this movie that were in this movie. Jimmy Olsen, Marcy Graves, and A. Robin. They're all dead with hardly a mention. The Batman one I can forgive because they're setting up his solo franchise and probably Suicide Squad with the Joker tie-in. They're doing Death in the Family, which is probably what they're doing with the dead Robin. It's probably Jason. Hopefully it's Jason. And I mean, that sounds bad, but I hope it's Jason because I like the original Robin. I love Tim Drake. I love Dick Grayson. You know, Jason I like. But Jason Todd's death is classic, and you can turn his solo movie being The Return of the Red Hood, which is a great comic book storyline, and you could literally have that be in your Batman solo film. It's Jason coming back from the dead to get revenge of the Joker. So I hope that's where they're going with it. So I'll count Robin in this, but it's only because, well, it's in the same boat of a guy who dies and they hardly mention it. Jimmy fucking Olsen doesn't even get a name drop, and after the scene, nobody even talks about Jimmy no more. There's not a scene of Superman going, Jimmy's dead. That totally sucks. It's like, no, I didn't kill those people, Lois. Your Superman's pal Jimmy Olsen is dead. You're not mentioning it. There's not a scene of his funeral. Why isn't this affecting you? And then you got Marcy Graves, who is a character who I really love with Lex from going back to the animated series. She was like the China to his Triple H to make a wrestling, the big bulky security bodyguard chick, and here she was skinny hot Asian chick who blew up. So that was my problems. You know, the pacing, the editing was really bad. I'm trying to make this short. There's 4 different movies. Like I said, if you cut this movie down, like a lot of people also say, if you cut this movie down and made it into 4 short films, a Batman solo, Batman versus Superman solo, Death of Superman spoilers, and a Justice League prequel, you would have had 4 really great short films, but they all put them into a blender and mixed and matched them into one movie, and it didn't work out. They turned 4 really good ideas into one big mess. And finally, this is going to be my final rant, but fucking Jonathan Downer buzzkill Kent in this movie. In Man of Steel, it was really bad because it was 3 hours of him. This movie, thank God it was just one scene, but it was one scene that pissed me off. Also, the same thing I said everywhere else I ever reviewed this movie. Jonathan Kent, you're an idiot. Because you know why? It sucks what happened to the other farm. It sucks what happened to their animals. It sucks what happened to their crops. It sucked what happened to their home. But you know what would have sucked even more for your family? Not the other farms. If that would have happened to your farm and your crops and your animals and your family's livelihood and your family's income because you're farmers and that's how you make the money and your shelter. So to your mom who made you that hero cake, it wasn't a sense of, I wasn't a hero. Because if you do say, Clark, this is why you should do good things. Because even good things have bad deaths and bad things happen. You cannot be a hero because literally you think you're doing something good, but it doesn't help anybody. I lost the will to live until I met your mom. No, Jonathan, you're a fucking dumbass. Because to your mom, you and dad, and to your family, and to your animals, and to your crops, you were the fucking hero, you asshole downer emo moron.
So, James, just to throw it out there, Batman versus Superman, up, sideways, or down?
Sideways. Because like I said, it frustrates me, and it's a mind f because there are things that I really like. And it's Batman versus Superman. Batman's my second favorite superhero, and I am also a Superman fan. This should have been the most epic. Is Batman Superman, the world's finest. When they team up in a book, it's called World's Finest for a reason. They're the first 2 big time superheroes. Them teaming up in a movie should be epic across the board. And there's parts of this movie where it was. Like, God damn it, I gotta say, really great casting for Batman. Really great casting for Alfred. The Batman parts, minus the whole killing, which is another problem. Batman and Superman killing all over the place, but literally rinse and repeat what everybody else has said about that. I don't like the killing. I was okay with the Burton movies because that was the first Batman movie. This is after the Dark Knight Nolan trilogies where he was all about, I don't kill. Here he is, he's stabbing people and setting them on fire and blowing them the fuck up and breaking their necks. I don't care about the killing. Everything but that, they got Batman down to a T. Everything that those silent scenes where he just stares at the Robin costume and the ha ha ha, he got the last laugh, Batman, and he stares at it and he walks by and he looks at the bat suit. That's classic. That was a great scene. That scene where he's holding the little girl and he's looking up and he's staring at Superman's outfit and he's staring like, you motherfucker. That's a great scene. Don't get me started on the whole over the top 9/11 and the whole fact that the only building in they are addressing it like, oh no, Man of Steel, he didn't let all of Metropolis die. Everybody got out except for that one building that just happened to be Wayne Enterprises because they're idiots. And they didn't evacuate till they called their boss because fuck it. You know, like I said, there's things I like, but then there were things I don't like. Like Lex, they fucked up. That wasn't Lex Luthor. Please, in Justice League, they kill Eisenberg and he's Lex's little brother who just happens to have the same name as him. Please do something like that. Because he was not Lex. He was clearly, they wanted Joker in the movie. They couldn't get Joker in the movie because he's in Suicide Squad. So they said, fuck it, let's make Lex the Joker. The only thing that made me think that Eisenberg was Lex, was when they shaved his head bald. That was it. Because he actually kind of looked like Lex. I go, oh, I can buy that as Lex Luthor. And then he started in the jail cell going beep, boop, beep, boop, beep, boop. And I'm like, you lost me.
All right. Sorry, I have my mouth full of popcorn here. All right. I saw Batman vs Superman as well. I don't really have that much of an opinion on it because I was just like, yeah, that sure did happen. My big thing that I want to talk about, and I haven't actually talked about this with James yet. Daredevil season 2. My God. Damn, baby, that was a good show. I gotta say right now, Daredevil.
Tie it back with Batman and Superman. That dynamic is how the movie should have been.
Mm-hmm.
The light hero and the dark vigilante, and how they at first don't get along because they're so different, but then by force of circumstances they have to get along.
I mean, here's what I'm gonna say: Johnny Bernthal as Frank Castle.
He was. I'll say this right now. They interrupt you for a second, John. He was Punisher. A lot of things about these Marvel movies and TV shows is they are the character. Oh, except for Mandarin, they are the characters come to life. And same thing here. Elektra. It wasn't Jennifer Gardner. This was actual. When I see this is the Elektra from the comics. And then with Punisher, same thing too. I'm seeing this and I'm like, I remember I'm texting John after the first episode after he blows up the whole, like pretty much just shoots up, massacres the whole mob, Irish mob, and I'm like, yeah, that's Frank Castle, but that's why I don't like him in the comics because that's Frank Castle. How he's one man and he's able to wipe out a whole room of people because he had nom training.
Mike, just to give some basic just hit points. Episode 3, where it is just Matt tied up to that chimney, and the two of them are they're trying. Matt's trying to talk to him for like half the episode, and Frank's just not buying it. And then there's a point where Matt just rips him a new one. And says, "Who did you lose, Frank?" "Oh, boo-hoo. We've all lost people." I was like, Jesus, Murdoch, you're kind of an asshole right now. But then it's just like, you get to the end of episode.
I see Matt's point because he's like, my dad died, and I'm not going around killing people. He doesn't know yet, but there's a teenager that's swinging around this universe whose parents died and his uncle got shot, and he's, the most quippiness light hero of them all. So he's like, yeah, you could have done this completely differently than going on, I'm going to kill anybody who commits a crime, even jaywalking.
Yeah. But then it's like you get to the end of episode 4, and it is literally the two of them sitting in front of a gravestone for, what was that, like 10, 15 minutes? Just talking. And I was just like, that's all you need. That's all you need right here. This is what other things want. This is exactly what you need. This is not trying too hard, and this is not some people would say, oh, you're not putting any effort into it. No, you're doing it right. When you had those two characters just sitting there talking, you got a deeper look into this whole thing than most other players. You got more of a deeper feel of their conflict and their motivations than you did in 2 hours of Batman versus Superman. And not to keep shitting on this movie and not to keep bringing up, a Marvel versus DC thing, but it's like Daredevil Season 2 was a better Batman versus Superman than BVS was. And that's why it was just like, that was so perfect. And then you had Elektra, who came in, and I did not give a crap about that character. They worked hard throughout the whole season to make me love the character. By the end of the season, I was on board. I was like, oh yeah, I love this character. I want to see more of her. Then she died. And I hated Netflix for a minute because I was just like,
John, why are you upset that Elektra died? I mean, that's basically what she's most famous for in the comics now. She dies, comes back, dies again, comes back, dies again, comes back, Skrull, dies again, comes back, dies, Skrull, dies again.
I know
she came back and died as a Skrull 3 times.
I know she's going to come back, but it's just like, you worked so hard to make me love this character. And you had such a heartfelt moment between her and Matt right there, right before they went out to fight the Hand Ninjas. And then you hurt me.
My only beef with her dying is not that Elektra died, because getting mad at Elektra's dying is almost like being mad that Bruce Wayne's parents died, or that Krypton exploded. That's a part of the character. This death is a big part of it, of the story.
To give context here, I know nothing about Elektra. Well, this is literally my first exposure.
My biggest problem with killing her off is they wasted it. One of the most iconic deaths in Marvel Comics, like right up there with Gwen Stacy, to a lot of people, is Elektra's death. Because she is, in a lot of people's eyes, Daredevil's Gwen Stacy, the girlfriend who died. Unlike Gwen, she comes back 100 times and she's a murderous assassin. But anyways, she is like that. She's the deaf girlfriend until Karen Page, spoiler, it's died in the comics. She was the dead girlfriend. She was the Gwen Stacy to Matt Murdock. And her death was done by Bullseye. Bullseye stabs her with her own side and she dies in the comics. And they did that in the 2003 movie. So I'm watching this and she died. I'm like, but Darkseid's not in. I mean, not Darkseid, but Bullseye's not in the cartoon yet. I mean, on the TV show yet. Oh my! They killed her. Why didn't they save it to next season when they have Bullseye there? That'd be awesome. So you can see Bullseye and Elektra. And I'm like, now if they do it, it's just gonna be it's because she came back alive and he killed her again. It's not gonna be as impactful as it was that it was Bullseye. I think that's my only complaint, is that she wasn't killed by Bullseye. Everything else with Elektra was great. My only complaint is her death is she's killed by Bullseye. Why couldn't it be Bullseye?
And let me just say this right now. That line, "I'm the black sky, Matthew. I'm the devil of Hell's Kitchen." I was like, I'll just roll some context out here. When it comes to this stuff, I have the emotional maturity of a 14-year-old fangirl with a Tumblr page. And so it's just, that hurt. And then
the best thing, the only thing that would make that seem more cooler is when she says, "I'm the black sky," and he should have said then, "Well, I'm the man without fear." And then Spider-Man shows up and goes, "I'm your friendly neighborhood Spider-Man." And then Hulk shows up and goes, "Hulk smash." And then Wolverine shows up saying, "I'm an X-Men. We protect the people we're hated." And then Spider-Woman shows up and goes, "To know me is to fear me." It's like pretty much every comic book tagline, nickname for these people. They just all show up in a line and say their thing. That'd be hilarious. And then it gets the DC people randomly, and it gets awkward. You get Ben Affleck going, "I'm Batman."
But then, let me talk about what was possibly the highlight of the season. It was the biggest shock for me because I did not see this coming. I don't know if anyone saw this coming because how they kept this quiet, I have no idea. Episode 8, they get Johnny. They get the Punisher in the prison. Now, what I assumed was going to happen was they were literally just going to take him into the prison, walk him through, and walk him out the back door. That was what I thought was going to happen. And then he goes out in the rec yard, and I'm like, okay, he's just going to go out some back door. And then he walks over, and you see a guy bench pressing. And I'm just like, no, it's not Fisk. No, if it was Fisk, we would have known. If he was back, we would have known. And then Vincent D'Onofrio sits up. And then, here's the thing. When that happened, I was like, oh, he's just going to be in the next episode for like 5 minutes. He's not going to have a major role. No, he's like a major player in the next episode. And right at the end, that scene where the guy who he told Punisher to kill is in the hospital bed, hours away from death. And Fisk is just sitting there, eating, and says, you were right. There can only be one Kingpin. I was like, I'm going to stand up and I'm going to applaud. I was just like, right there.
In a weird way, that episode, tying back to Spider-Man, gave me weird Back in Black feelings. Because it's him, like, when he's ordering the hit on Peter and his family. And then you also got, like, the bloody fight that ends up happening in the jail. That's, like, Peter and him, like, ripping the chest, thing. It would really make me think about, did they just read Spider-Man Back in Black and said it's replaced with Punisher?
But that was great. And then I was like, oh, we're not going to see him again after this. Then the next episode comes, and you get one of the best scenes in the whole season. Matt Murdock sitting right here. Wilson Fisk sitting right there. My God, that was just so good. It was so good.
I wouldn't want to go as far as to say they weren't going to address it. Like he wasn't going to show up. I think everybody knew that Kingpin's going to show up in season 2. Either he's going to break out or Punisher's around. Punisher's whole thing is I'm wiping out the mafia. Kingpin is the head of them. So he's the top. He's the big bad. So you kind of figured he was going to get to Fisk eventually. But yeah, you're right. I didn't think it was going to be the episode that they did it in. I thought it would be like the final. It's him breaking out, and all three have to take down Kingpin once again.
But I couldn't believe what they did there. And just on other notes, Charlie Cox did an amazing job as Daredevil once again. I don't think he gets enough credit for what he does. I mean, he like James was just saying, he is Matt Murdock from the comics. He is just like right off the page. He is so good. Foggy this season was just awesome. Karen Page this season, it was kind of weird because it was weird to see her have such a close relationship with the Punisher.
It's weird because in a lot of ways they wanted to be the conscience of Daredevil is like Elektra's the devil on the shoulder, and then Karen Page is the angel on the other end. But then she's the one who decides, yeah, fuck them all, kill them all. Punisher's right.
Yeah, it's like it was a little bit weird, but I really like Deborah Ann Wool as Karen Page, so I think I don't have a problem with seeing her. And let's just throw it out there right now. Thanks, Marvel and Netflix, for literally ending on I'm Daredevil. What? You don't even get any reaction. You just get I'm Daredevil.
The only way that season could have ended more perfectly, if they would have pulled the biggest shock ever. And it's Daredevil standing on a rooftop, and then somebody walks up to him and goes, I want you on my side. I need you. I'm recruiting a team for a big battle. I want you on my side. He turns around, and then there's motherfucking Steve Rogers. Chris Evans,
Dude.
like, I need you on my side in the Civil War. Boom. Like, that's the only way they could have topped that.
Okay, here's what I would have done if Steve Rogers had shown up and said, hey, yeah, I need you to, here's the thing. You got super senses. I need you to kick Tony Stark's ass.
No, they don't make that great. It's because they could have totally done the same for New Avengers where he's like, no.
Yeah, because there is that scene in New Avengers #3. Steve Rogers goes to try and recruit him, and he's like, yeah, no, I fucked up my own world so much. I really don't need to fuck up yours too. So
They could literally, that could be how the season ends. It could be, I want you on my side. And then it's Daryl saying no. And that's how you explain why he's not in the fucking superhero brawl.
oh god, it's just.
But that's like the only way they could have topped it, and that's just fan, service.
That's just us fanboying, but it was just like Daredevil season 2, 2 thumbs up from me. 2 middle fingers as well because you made me feel things. You spent all of season 1 making me love Nelson and Murdoch, only to tear them apart.
John, Nelson. John, it's Nelson and Murdoch. It's like the Daily Bugle going away. It's gonna come back.
I know, but it hurt, James. I didn't get any resolution. It's unresolved.
And by season 3 finale, they're gonna reform the company again. They're gonna reform the law firm. It's gonna be all back to status quo.
But it hurt, James. You don't understand. I feel things. But
I gotta say, one of the best character moments of this season is the fact that, especially in those early episodes, how Foggy is like a lot different than how he was in the first season. How in the first season he was kind of like Matt's wingman, who was a kitty man. I'm like, where are you? Where are you? This season, it's like that scene where he goes into like the wannabe, Sons of Anarchy, I guess the best way to describe it is he's like going to that biker club, and they're gonna kill him because he wants to know information about what's going on with the Punisher. And they're thinking, if this guy's asking, he's a lawyer and he's asking around about a guy who only we know about, yeah, he must be a cop or something. We're gonna kill him, and that guy's gonna kill him until he finally, he realizes that Foggy is a nice guy and he just tells him go.
Yeah, I think Foggy was absolutely amazing this season. I mean, that is one of the big examples of character development. It's just, again, Elektra, you made me love her through character development. And I love Foggy from episode 1 of the first season, but it's so good to see his character progression through 2 seasons.
I said this with the trailer, John. That first scene that she's in, where or Matt's drinking, the soda or the beer or whatever it is, and then she throws the sigh or the ninja star or whatever, and he catches it and he goes, Elektra, and she's like, hello, Matt, fuck you. It's like, that is Elektra and Daredevil to a T. 2003, them matrixing wire fu fighting, at a children's playground is not Elektra and Daredevil.
Okay, but we'll move off of the Daredevil podcast. We just wanted to throw those 2 things in there because we really wanted to talk about those 2 things. But yeah. So any other shout-outs, James, this week before we sign off?
McDonald's, blah, blah, blah. I'm loving it because I got a job there now. Shout out to DC because even though Batman v Superman wasn't that good, Rebirth sounds be pretty awesome, badass. And like I said, there's a lot of titles, especially a lot of the bad books that I'm like, I thank God I got a new job right now because my wallet would be killing me if not otherwise. Because there's a lot of books I'm really thinking that's going to be on my pull list as soon as I can.
All right. My shout out this week: Marvel, Stan Lee, Steve Ditko, David Michelinie, Todd McFarlane, Dan Slott, all of them. Thank you for Spider-Man. Thanks for the comics we reviewed this week. Other shout out: Captain America, Sam Wilson, number 7, Return of Steve Rogers. Woo! Hell yeah! Look out for Captain America, Steve Rogers, number 1 on May 18th, people. That'll be fun. Other shout outs this week: Pop-Tarts, because I ate one during the podcast. Pure Aqua Spring Water, because I drank it during the podcast.
My soda drink sponsor, Bitter Disappointment, aka Batman vs Superman, Dr. Pepper. I'm a Dr. Pepper fan. That's not a shot at Dr. Pepper. Shout out to Dr. Pepper. Dr. Pepper is awesome. I just have to keep on saying Bitter Disappointment because that's how I felt after Batman vs Superman.
Yeah. Shout out to all the people who are still watching at this point. I really thought we'd go down to 0 viewers once we started this whole deviation section, but no, we've literally not lost a single one.
Because that's the thing about Batman vs Superman. I seen like on the internet, nobody can you comment on Twitter, comment on YouTube. I mean, talk to us about this. because literally everybody wants to talk about Batman versus Superman. Get DC credit. They got people talking. Not for good reasons, but they got people talking.
Yeah, so that's pretty much going to do it. That's all we have for this episode this week. So we
Shout
hope
out to Marfa. All Marfas out there in the world. Anybody with the last name, with the name first or last name Marfa, shout out to you.
Yes,
because if you're ever going to be killed by somebody, your get out of jail free card to not be killed is always say the name Marfa. That's the moral of Batman vs Superman.
That's literally.
They literally went from Dark Knight Returns, ready to kill each other, Batman and Superman, to you gotta say Marfa. That was my mother's name too. My mother is dead. And then immediately it was like flip a coin. They went from hating, ready to kill each other, to the 50s world finest. You're my best chum, Superman. You're my best buddy, Batman. Best friend. We're as close as two guys in the 50s can get without being considered gay. Yay! We're two platonic male friends that have fun time together as superheroes and wear spandex. Yay!
All right, so thank you all for tuning in. We hope to see you all next weekend. Catch you later. Martha!